afternoon, and welcome to the Blaze Ahead webinar series. My name is Damian Donaldson, Director of the Professional Development for We Will Rise organization, and I will be your web event coordinator for this evening. Today's event will be facilitated by 6 dynamic speakers and panelists: Nyla Bader Edmondson, Michael Love, Gary Harris, Rashid Hill, Anthony Hale, and myself. In addition to guiding you through today's webinar, I would like to remind you that this is one of a 2-part series. The second event will take place next Saturday from 12 to 2 p.m. So make sure you register so we can continue today's professional development conversation. Now, your participation is important to us. So before we get started, let's take a moment to ensure that you are familiar with our Zoom webinar controls. For this webinar, all participants will be in listen-only mode. This means your webinar and microphone will remain off to minimize background noise, interruptions, and distractions. You can, however, and will have an opportunity to engage our speakers and panelists by taking advantage of our participant-enabled webinar communication features. For example, the raise hand feature will indicate if you have a question or if you'd like to bring some attention to one of our team members. The poll feature may be used periodically to field specific questions initiated by our speaker or panel moderator. And finally, the chat feature will allow you to communicate with our speakers by texting your response in the webinar's chat room. So with that being said, I want to do a quick test. Please take a moment to practice by using your controls and raising your hand, or actually just type in where you are from. Because I know that we have people coming from out of state and joining us from out of state in San Diego and the Southern California area. So if you can, type in where you are located. Okay, here. Okay, so let's move on. I'll make sure that you know that this event is brought to you by the We Will Rise organization. This is an organization that was founded in 2017 by 2 friends, Mike Love and Gary Harris. These 2 individuals are, again, from East San Diego, and they have participated in numerous events, community development events, grassroots organizations to really focus on Black men in general, but to also turn that energy back to the community and help out the community at large. And we are a part and a collection of this evolution for the last three years, hosting several events. So now we're at the point where we are responding to this COVID situation and the employment needs, gaps, and underemployment situation that we're faced with by providing a professional development activity and event such as the Blaze Ahead event. Now that we have covered all of that, I want to make sure that we have a chance to transition over to Gary Harris, one of the co-founders of We Will Rise, coming out of San Diego. So without further ado, please welcome Gary. It's like you're on mute, Gary.
Unmute. There we are. Thank you, Damian, for that introduction. Welcome, everybody, to Blaze Ahead. As he mentioned, I'm Gary Harris, the Vice President and co-founder of We Will Rise. Blaze Ahead was brought to you and created by Nyla Bader and the men of We Will Rise. And we wanted to do something to give something to the community to help them blaze ahead of the competition and get them on their career paths. Today we have 2 outstanding workshops by 2 incredible individuals who have helped me out tremendously on my career path, followed by a great panelist discussion by a group of incredible professionals that have been dedicated to giving their time to present something great for everyone. So one thing I'm really big on is taking notes. This is a great time. If you haven't done so, please grab a pen and paper. You will get great information thrown at you today. So you want to be sure that you are able to jot some stuff down, as well as if you have a question that you can't submit in the chat box at the time, to be sure to write it down and submit later. So let's jump into it. Our first presenter is a personal friend of mine. He's an author, a life coach, he's a business owner, and many, many things. He's helped me out. And I want to present to you our first speaker, Mr. Rashid Hill.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gary. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's always a pleasure working with you and just being around you. Your energy is so high, so good. So it's just awesome that we have the opportunity to be here today and working with you. And like I said, giving appreciation to Naila for bringing this to our attention and really helping us to have a lift off. So welcome to Blaze Ahead, the beginning of an amazing career readiness exploration. Today, I will deliver the first in a series of exciting and informative presentations to get you job search focused and interview ready. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen, and I will be getting that up right now so you can see what we're working with. Okay. All right, 1 second. All right, there we go. So like I said, I'm Rashid Hill, and I'll be talking about the job search during the COVID-19 and post-pandemic. I'm an Air Force veteran with over 15 years in DOD as a civilian, in the civilian service, as not as a military. I did military a few years, and I did about 15 years as a management in DOD as civilian, with experience in recruitment, staffing, and career coaching. Currently, I spend most of my time handling coaching and mentoring with veterans that are transitioning from the military into civilian positions or civilian lifestyle. So today, let's talk about the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about metrics. We're going to talk about social media, datafication, COVID-19, and the effects of COVID-19 on the employment scene. College grads, we'll talk a little bit about what happens when you graduate. Here's some resources that you can use. We'll talk a little bit about job search for recruiters and recruitment agencies. We're going to get into the job board and some websites there, and we'll conclude with the future of work and the required skills that you'll need to take your opportunities to the next level. So one thing I want to talk about before I get into the statistics is just a little background and some context. We here are in the midst of a crisis that is unseen in the history of the world. With this pandemic, in the US alone, there are challenges that have increased the pressure and forced more than 40 million Americans to file for unemployment in about a 4-month period. We know that as of this week, they got that number down to about 1 million, or a little less than 1 million still filing for unemployment per week. As incredible that is to me and you, there are so many watching right now that either have lost their jobs, have no job to return to, or in jeopardy of losing what they had before COVID-19 and prior to the riots and the fires that we all saw on the news. So many of you have applied and been applying this year, but yet you have not got that call back, and you're probably wondering what's going on. This is where We Will Rise comes in with Blaze Ahead. To set the stage, let me give you the top reasons why your job search may not be working for you. Number one, automated systems. Your resume doesn't have the relevant information the AI is trained to identify. So they're using automation to identify keywords and key terms in order to vet your resume before they even think about an interview. And we'll talk a little bit more about automation later. The second thing is waiting on the process to work. You update your LinkedIn profile with looking for a job. Interesting enough, people do that. And then you wait for a recruiter to reach out to you. Well, you must be aggressive. Looking for a job is a full-time job. Number three, not tailoring your resume to the vacancy. You must adapt your resume to the specific job that you're looking for or applying to. And we'll get into that a little bit more later as well. Number four, not making the connection. You rely too much on technology. You're not reaching out to the person that posted the job in the first place. And on LinkedIn or social media, there are breadcrumbs. There are ways that you can find out what company what division, what department. There's some info at contact or contact at thecompany.com or .org or something like this. So you might want to check that out. The fifth thing is maybe you have no online presence at all. There are some people that just do not want to be online. And so they haven't made the transition online. Today's recruiters are all about Googling. They will Google you to see if you're a good fit. And we'll definitely talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. The last thing I want to say that maybe stop you from getting that call back is being overly persistent. What do I mean? Sometimes we view the struggle as a challenge and we continue alone because we say, oh, we can do it. We'll make it happen. I'll get over this hump. Well, at some point you should seek help from professionals. This is where We Rise comes in. We know that the economy will get back on its feet. And instead of watching from the sidelines, we choose to provide career guidance and training to make sure you are more marketable when that time comes. We are here to help. We will rise. Now let's get into these metrics and these statistics that we got up here on the screen. These statistics are very interesting because I wanted to know what are the top 3 ways we can look for jobs. First, internet, social media, and then personal contacts. Some of you may have used all 3 of these, may have used one more than the other, but what surprised me the most was social media. I found that very interesting, but it's real. The internet, 51% of the time people are searching online to find jobs, as well as employers are searching to look for qualified candidates as well. The internet has become the primary point for the search. It's easy access, convenient, there's no face-to-face, so there's non-threatening environment. So people search all day and apply all day, but you might not necessarily get a call back. Why social media? Why is it so high as far as percentage of time that people search for jobs? How many of you search for jobs on Facebook? Very surprising to me, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then personal contacts was third, a very close third, whereas you may reach out to a friend, you may reach out to a colleague and ask them if they're hiring. So when I think about this number 3, to me, in my experience, this is where the hidden job market resides. When you're looking for a promotion or a specific job that is right for you, it may not be posted. It's just not posted. What do I mean by not posted? The largest are specific top positions. All the positions are just becoming vacant and they're reserved for like social economic categories. You have vet preference, you have ADA or the American Disability Act where you hire special needs or people with disabilities and minorities, or these are some of the type of specialized categories that are, there are laws that basically say you got to have a certain percentage of these categories that you hire as employees. And so for the government, which I work with, these are critical and they are very high up on the list of recruitment. And so in the government, you have expedited hiring authorities, pathways, you have direct hiring authorities, you have VEOA, the Veteran Employment Opportunity Act, and you have the Recruitment Act as well that is used extensively. And so the statistics are clear. And the one thing that I really wanted to highlight on this slide is the 5% of using recruitment agencies. To me, that is so very low because of what the recruitment agency brings to the table for your job search. And I have a slide that we're going to talk about recruitment agencies in a few minutes. Social media. Since social media was so high up on the list for job search, I thought we'd take the time to focus on where on social media the actual jobs are being found as well as sourced and placed by the employers. Social media was one of the most effective ways in 2019 to job search. And with most businesses sharing their new openings on the social platforms before publishing them anywhere else, who thinks it's a great place to be visible? So here's my question to the audience. If you are looking for a job, or if you know someone that's in the running and looking for a job, or maybe they've crossed the threshold and actually about to get an interview, anywhere in the job search path, my question is, do you have a clear and consistent branding on LinkedIn and Facebook, not necessarily Twitter, IG, YouTube, any of that, just those two. And I kind of want to get an idea for the audience, if you can type in, if you have kind of a consistent branding, does your page on LinkedIn show the professionalism just as Facebook if you're in the job search mode? If you could, please answer that question if you're in the job search mode. I mean, if you're working and you're not looking for a job and you're here because you have some interest in these type of topics, then hey, I appreciate that as well. But give me your best shot when you were looking for a job. Did you have some consistency between the different platforms that you have profiles? Okay. Well, I'll press on and hopefully we'll get some responses in there. I'm not sure if I can see that information or not, but hopefully we got some responses. So LinkedIn. What I found that LinkedIn makes it very easy. Okay. So I can't see the actual comment, so I'll rely on our team to see that. I actually looked at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably one of the easiest ways to get relative job information for whatever specific area that you're looking into. And another place on Facebook, since these were the two highest that people actually look for jobs, O'Connor's and Connor's Contract Opportunities, that Facebook group is run by a good friend of mine, and they have about 8,000 or so members are in the group, and they actually have recruiters that are actively looking to hire people in different contract positions overseas as well as in the United States. So I found that very interesting. So when the statistics say that 60% of the time people are using Facebook for job search, and I actually go to this group and I see that there are actual people putting their requests out there, as well as the employer and the recruiters and the hiring managers are putting their job announcements in the group looking for qualified people. So it is working. It is legitimately happening. So I recommend that if you are in the running for a job, then social media is definitely in some way that is happening for people right now. Right here, like I said, social media is high for employers and employees looking for qualified talent. And it says 84% of companies have successfully hired using social media. This was in 2019. So think about that. If you don't have a presence on social media, then how can you feel comfortable with your job search? If you haven't gotten a call back and you're not actively on social media with a consistent brand that shows your particular knowledge, skills, and abilities and experience and certifications, I would say, which is top of the mind right now, then you're going to miss the boat. So I put this up here, the picture to the right. This was in my email box. Based on my profile, I get these emails all the time. And this was maybe a couple of weeks ago. It clearly states that 940 management analyst jobs were filled on LinkedIn. So when I start researching and I see that it says 84% of companies are actually hiring on social media, and then in my email box, I see that 940 management analyst positions were filled, it's legit. That's the proof that you need. But it is happening, and I recommend that if you don't have a presence on social media, you definitely want to get a presence on social media. Let's talk about datafication. What is datafication? When we talk about datafication, we have to take it back a little bit, a couple of steps. Quality hiring. That's a common term that's been brought up. Quality hiring. Like I said, forgive me, I cannot see any of the comments that are popping up. Maybe it's because of my screen, not sure. So hopefully somebody is capturing that. And if it's a question for me or if there's something coming my way, I'll be happy to address it right after the presentation. So please forgive me if I'm not addressing something that you're asking me during the brief. But make sure you jot it in, please. I can't see the actual comments. So quality hiring. So my question to you is, what is a quality hire? Are you a quality hire? Do you have the credentials for the position that you're applying for? This is key in your job search, because what is a good job search if you don't have the proper resume? So you've got to have the skills that will put you in the category of quality hire, because 63% of the recruiters say that finding a quality hire is their biggest problem. And there are statistics that I'll talk a little bit about in a minute as well that go a little further into what happens when you don't get a quality hire, and this is kind of why this is important. But when you get into datafication, we're talking about 72% of businesses plan to automate their recruitment decisions this year. So some of them, they're already using AI and machine learning automation to scan resumes. And I think we understand that. And those keywords and key phrases, key terms are being pulled, and that is what kind of moves you to the next phase of the recruitment process. But guess what happens most of the time? Experts say that 75% of resumes are rejected and never make it to review by humans. Think about that. Only 25% that are scanned. Nobody's looking at these resumes yet. Your resume has to be typed from day one in order to even get looked at. And datafication means intelligent selection. They're going to score based upon different terms and variables that they built into the system. It's going to digitally or electronically score your resume against all other resumes and then see how you rank. And then you go to the next phase. There may be another automated phase that narrows it down a little bit more. What if they're only looking for 5 candidates, the best 5, based upon a computer telling them what those best 5 are? And after they get this information and they do make a quality hire, then what's going to happen? That quality hire becomes the baseline for all other hires for those positions. So the company now has taken themselves out. Intelligent selection, meaning by AI, they reduce the bias in the review process. Nobody is using, hey, I'm from this category or this particular culture, or this is my name and I like this name, so I'm gonna look for people with this name. None of that happens when AI is involved. Data analytics and metrics will improve the process based upon the information that's researched. They believe that the process will be improved because bias will be taken out. So with the climate now of diversity and inclusion, you have the potential to alleviate biases by using the data. And the data will be formulated into analytics and metrics to create this datafication checklist. They believe that with datafication, using that as a tool will achieve greater efficiency and effectiveness in the recruitment process. That will definitely be a culture shift for HR and any behaviors within that particular category. So here's one statistic that I found very interesting. Over 27% of new hires leave their new job within 90 days. 90 days. And basically the company polled about 200 people to find this out. The other interesting fact or statistic, because we've got to understand statistics, almost half of employees, half of the employers believe new hires fail to live up to expectations more than 80% of the time. So put that into context. 1, they're looking for a quality hire and they say it's a problem. 2, they're trying to take the bias out. 3, 80% of the time, new hires fail to live up to expectations. Blaze Ahead is a necessary tool, a necessary training, a necessary addition to your job search process in order to get you job search ready, resume ready, and interview ready. And so you can get to your job, get hired, and be successful in your career. This is where it has to start. That's how we change the statistics. So what is the COVID effect? COVID-19 came on the scene and just caused all kinds of havoc. We know that Americans filed for more than 40 million unemployment claims in a 10-week period. This was in between March and April, a 10-week period. Now, yes, we're right at about 900,000 or so, but at a point in time, recently, 40 million. Think about that number. What if some of those people were already unemployed and they just took advantage of the money? What if 1 million, what if 10 million were not classified as losing their jobs because of COVID-19. Let's say there's 30 million. That's still an incredible amount of people. So my question is, what do you do? How do you take advantage of your time during this new normal? My question to you is, what do you do with the time in this new normal? How do you become the best qualified, the best certified? How do you become the best in the business? Training. This is the ultimate force multiplier, is training. So I know that my time is getting short, so I'm gonna pick up the pace a little bit. So just about the information here I'm talking about is training. Research shows that the top 4 skills that executives deem most critical for today's workforce: 1, to be agile; 2, you need to be very conscious of your time, how you manage your time on the job or for an employer, or even personal time, because that affects your professional time. Teamwork, you got to be a team player. Why? Because there's shifts and pivots that happen all the time. And you have to be able to effectively communicate. If you are the best qualified, you have to communicate that. If you need to be upskill or reskill, you have to communicate that. The job seeker must find a way to put in time to raise their game in training during this COVID new normal time that you have. Reskilling and upskilling is the key to being the most marketable in this 4th industrial revolution that we are part of right now. Automation is happening, and I could give you more examples, but like I said, I don't want to take up too much more time. Definitely, if you have any questions about it, I'll make sure the information is available to you at the end of this. But in California, I want to highlight that they do have what they call an employee training panel. If you're an employer in California, or you work for a company and they have retooled a lot of their industry, their systems, their machines, things like that, and you need more training, then the government actually will fund them to make sure you get reskilled or upskilled so that you can meet these requirements. Okay. College grads. Here are some actual websites that college grads that you can actually take advantage of and get you moving on your career. A lot of times, you graduate from college, you may not know exactly what you can do. So these are some websites that will match your skills to occupations. So just take a look at some of these, see if there's something that will give you an idea, something that moves you that you want to take a look at, and definitely copy that, make a note of that. We can definitely make some of this information available to you after the webinar. If you don't find something that you're passionate about or you're qualified to do on paper, you may have a great idea. You may want to opt for starting your own business. And there are a lot of college grads that do that, so I'm not recommending that, but it does happen. And it's from great ideas. So that's an option for college grad. Moving on to recruitment agencies. Enlisting the help of a recruitment agency makes the most sense depending on where you are in your career. I've used recruitment agencies in the past. When I got out of the military, I got hired, and it worked very well for me until I got a contract job and I moved on. And then I moved on to federal government. So my statement for you, based on this slide, is don't feel that you are giving up or you're giving in if you have to reach out for help. These are professionals that look for jobs to fill positions in order to help you get hired and help the company get quality employees. Therefore, they will work for you in order to put you into a position that is a good fit for you and the employer. It takes a lot of the burden off of your shoulders to try to figure out who's the employer, how do I talk to them, what do I say to them, how do I get past the gatekeeper or the person that is in front of the hiring manager. These things are eliminated when you actually utilize some of these agencies. The key agency here is AGEN Global, and it helped me to remember that when you're looking at the future of work and jobs, one of the key things is remote work is the future. And in remote work, oh, okay, my voice may not be coming through too good. Okay, hopefully I'm clear. Like I said, I can't see anything, so I appreciate it. If you have to send me something, definitely hit me on my cell, and I'll keep that close to me. So at this point, I want to iterate that in the future of work and jobs, you want to make sure that you're very marketable and you're flexible, because cities compete for you. And what do I mean by that? The cities compete because whatever city you want to work in, you can work in, because you're going to be a remote worker. And the future of jobs will definitely be heavy on the remote work side. We see that happening now. And we've heard, based on technology, that the economy has moved 10 years and 10 weeks doing things that we were planning to do in the next 10 years. We had to push forward and make it happen in 10 weeks. And most companies actually did that. So hopefully you can kind of hear me. I did get a message that I was kind of choppy or my sound wasn't good. So I appreciate it, that notification. And like I said, I can't see the messages come across, so it's kind of interesting how this is happening. But hopefully you see my slides and you can kind of hear the information that I'm putting out. But that company, yes, they basically will put you in a position where if you want to work for a company and they're based out of, let's say, New Jersey, or they're based out of Washington or Florida, you may be able to get hired and actually stay in California, in San Diego, while you're working for that company. Job search websites. Job boards all over the place. There are so many, I can name them from here to eternity. So here's what's interesting about this one. 63%, as I remind you, of recruiters say finding a quality hire is the biggest problem. That being the case, we want to make sure that you are considered the best qualified. And that's what the Blaze Ahead training is all about. So if you have looked at LinkedIn jobs or jobs.ca.gov or USA Jobs for federal employment, these are places that you can go and you can do a job search and you can put your information in there, and they have a plethora of great information for you. One key aspect of this slide is the ex-offender at the careeronestop.org. You may have had some trouble with the law. If you know somebody that's had some trouble with the law and they're not sure if they can get a job, then have them go see this particular website, and maybe they have an opportunity to get employment and be contributing to society because they've served their time. So sometimes this is a problem, and we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to excel. So you may ask the question, is there anybody hiring out there because of COVID-19, because of the pandemic? Absolutely. And I'll give you a little information about that in a second. But before we close, yes, if there's any questions, like I said, I particularly can't see the questions, so I'm not sure if there's been questions, but definitely when I come off the full screen, maybe I can see that. So I apologize if I have not addressed any questions. And now I'm asking if there's questions because I'm about to close out. So I want to make sure that if you have some questions, at least I'll get an opportunity to respond to them. I know I'm a little bit over time, so I'm gonna go ahead and push through. The most important part of your job search is the interview. If you can get past the resume piece and you get to the interview, then you must excel. You must shine. And We Will Rise will definitely put you in a position to shine. Studies show that about 5 out of 250 applicants actually move past the resume stage to the interview. That's a very daunting statistic for somebody in the job search. Why is that? There's just a lot of qualified people. There's no trick. There's no magic. It's just the fact that more people are getting educated, getting experience, and all these particular types of skills are being built. I believe certifications are more valuable now. And if you haven't read the executive order by the president, he talks about leaning on certifications and experience versus vet preference and college graduates for filling positions in the federal government. Okay, so definitely, if you have questions, please put those in and I will address them. Right now, I'm going to close out with this. The future of work is here. the future of jobs, the future of employment, the future of learning. You know, upskilling and reskilling is in demand. You must put yourself in a position to win. These are some of the skills and jobs that will be required beyond 2020, 25, and 2030. If you want to excel, then definitely take some of these and take a look at them. If you have the background, use it. If you don't have the background, get it. This is important. This will help you to succeed into the future. Like I said, if you have questions for me, please let me know. And this is just a quick highlight that when some people say, who's hiring? Is anybody hiring? I did a quick search on LinkedIn and this came back. So there are companies hiring 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 people as a forecast or projection, right? But this was January, around January, between January and March. This was something that was published. And so just to give you an idea, yes, people are hiring. So yes, thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening to me. If there was any choppiness, if there was some things that you couldn't hear, I apologize right up front. But we want to make sure that we Rise with this Blaze Ahead program. We want to make sure that you're set up for success. We want to help you make it easy for the recruiter to see that you are the best qualified candidate and should receive that job offer. In order to get you interview ready, I ask that you keep your pen and pad at hand while I introduce our next presenter. He's a highly respected professor, career counselor, and president of We Will Rise. Mr. Mike Love, I would like to turn it over to you. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Rashid. I want to, first of all, thank you for all the information that you presented. That was some really, really deep, impactful information that I feel like individuals can use to better their job search. Okay, my name is Michael Love. I am the president and co-founder of We Will Rise. I want to come in and share a little bit of the information that I have and have acquired geared towards interviewing skills. I will say that currently I am an assistant professor of counseling at Riverside City College, where I not only teach, but also academic counsel and have done some work in career counseling as well. So what I want to share with you all today is geared towards the interviewing skills, be it through communication, through critical thinking skills, and then also nonverbal communication that I feel is going to be important for individuals who not only want to show up as confident to the interview, but also want to be able to show up and stand out. Okay, so these are some of the things, the tips, strategies, tools that I've used, and energy and information that I've gained from some of the people that I respect. And I feel like these are some things that you'll be able to utilize to make sure that you show up and are ready. Okay, so jumping into the first slide, I know that I've heard the old adage that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So when I talk about that, is going into having an assessment of your listening skills. And what I mean by that is being able before the interview to understand the listening skills that are strengths for you, and then what are some ones that you can work on to be a little better, a little bit more effective. So this could be listening for facts and details. This could be being aware of your own feelings and biases. This also goes into understanding body language, and as well as listening to understand and not just respond. To me, I feel like that's something that is truly important and goes missing sometimes, is where individuals are so quick, especially in interviews, which is already a anxiety producing situation, being able so quickly to listening to respond and not actually listening to understand. And I feel like when we're able to do that, it allows us to think a little bit more clearly and critically. Okay. So also understanding the 4 steps to effective listening is going to be extremely important. And what I mean by effective listening, understanding and being able to avoid any barriers that you have. So some of these may be obvious, any physical barriers or psychological barriers, how you're feeling, but also any environmental barriers. Interviews going on right now are obviously going on through an online format. So being comfortable with that online format, whether it's through Zoom like we're using now, or through Teams or one of the other various online platforms, understanding and being able to be comfortable with that platform, is going to go very far in the way that you come across once you're in the interview. You're going to come off as a little bit more composed and comfortable. Also, being able to use positive nonverbal. Your nonverbal skills are extremely, extremely important. What I mean by that, your communication skills, not just what you say, but what you do, your posture, the body language that you give off as well. Also, being able to seek meaning and clarity. I know one thing that I've realized in the interviews that I've been a part of is sometimes some questions may be unclear. And instead of taking a step back and really thinking about those questions and then maybe asking a follow-up question, sometimes we just rush through it. So being able to take a step back, seek meaning and clarity for each question that you're answering, again, is going to allow you to come off as a lot more clear and concise. And lastly, being able to paraphrase and reflect. Again, we want to be as short and succinct, but also be able to give as many details as necessary. And I'll go into a method that I've learned to use a little later. Okay. So next, I want to take a little bit of time to also talk about the nonverbal, because I know that I do believe I heard a saying, the communication is about 80 to 90% nonverbal, and the other part is what you actually say. But we get so many keys into the communication by the body language that person gives off. If you're in an interview and the body language that you see from the interviewees is slouched, is not very positive, is more closed off, that's already giving you a feeling and a vibe that's going to be counterproductive to you being positive, to you being the candidate that they're looking for. So being able to model that body language, to posture, the eye contacts, the facial expressions that truly convey that you're not only interested in the particular questions, but you're also thinking, critically thinking and thinking to understand and listening, not to just respond. Okay. Again, I can't necessarily see any questions. So if there are any questions being answered, I will get to those at the very end. All right. So then as we continue, I've always told all of my students consistently that I believe that the foundation of education is truly understanding critical thinking. And some of those basic elements of critical thinking and being able to question why. I think that's truly important, and understanding the questions that you ask or that are being asked of you, and then being able to formulate those questions in ways that show that you truly understand what's going on. Okay? So again, when I'm talking about critical thinking, to me, those questions to me were one of the biggest issues that I had to understand. So I know at the end of interviews, normally they will ask, do you have any questions for us? And me being the type of nervous person I am, I was always like, no, I'm good, I'm good. And then talking to some of the mentors that I had, they were telling me like, this is a perfect place for you to show, a perfect time for you to show not only your critical thinking skills, but also how invested that you are into the company and the research that you put in. And I thought about it and I was like, oh, that may be why I wasn't getting the positions that I wanted. So thinking about going into every interview and having done some research, maybe even online, to have an idea not only of the company, but what they're looking for. And then using that information to be able to formulate a couple questions that you can keep in your back pocket. So when you get to that particular point, it not only shows that you've done the research and you have a commitment, but also it's going to show your critical thinking skills as well. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So I attended a workshop a couple of years back, and they spoke about ways to be not only detail oriented, but succinct. And the way that they spoke about it, I was like, I love the idea. So I came up with a way to give some of that information and how to sail away. So truly what that means, after you show up or after you've done the research, you show up, you're confident, you're ready to go, your nonverbal communication, your body language is matching the positivity that you give in the questions. I feel like after all of that, what you actually say, it truly has to be the best representation of you. So the acronym for SAIL is a way to stay clear and concise while answering questions. So they broke it down into a couple of sections. I want to go over those with you. The first one is S, the situation. So what they say is to be able to set the stage for sharing a related story, anecdote, case study, fact, etc. For every interview that I've been a part of, you'll get a question that goes along the lines of, tell us about an experience that you had where you had a problem at work and you had to troubleshoot, or there was something that went on at work that you had to show your critical thinking skills. So situation, being able to share the experience, tell the story, and give enough sufficient details for understanding and engagement. What I realize is we're humans, and especially in a situation like an interview where it's already anxiety producing, just being able to be truly human and be who you are, and let your real feelings and passions show through, be truthful. I do believe truly that this will create a trust and credibility when you're speaking to the employers about your specific story. Next, we have the A and the I, which is action and impact. It talks about with detail, it says share what happened with feelings, the frame of mind, people's reactions or lack thereof. What did you or someone else do? What was the impact? How did you feel before, during, and after? This is allowing you to keep, to understand and get vibes of the body language and the nonverbal cues from the individuals who may be interviewing you. So this is how you're able to gauge and check. If you're getting a vibe that is not truly what you want to see, you may have to change and switch it just a little bit. Lastly, we have the L, which is lessons learned. So what this says is share how the story or experience links to the actual question. What did you learn from this particular situation? What did you gain from this? How were you able to not only change the situation to a better outcome, but how did this make you a better individual, a better person, a better employee, a better team member? What was the lesson learned? So I truly believe when we're able to put all four of those together, the situation, the action and impact, and the lesson learned, it will truly give you a way to be detail-oriented with the questions, but also be short and concise, okay? To me, I believe that these tips, tools, and strategies that I was able to give today, they will truly give you an opportunity beforehand to do a little bit of homework and research on yourself and the actual company that you will be interviewing with, so that when you show up for the interview, you're not only showing up as confident, but you're showing up ready to show up and show out and absolutely be the best that you can be. I think that's what we wanted to impart as we will rise and truly a part of this Blaze Ahead event. Now I'll stop sharing my screen. Were there any questions, comments, concerns? Have a little time for that. Okay. So again, I feel like with the energy, with what was brought forth with the job search questions that Rashid was able to bring us before, being able to transition into understanding what you need to do to feel confident going into the interview, I feel like each of these are truly important pieces of the puzzle, so that once you are able to put all of these together, you'll show up to your next interview, like I said, a lot more confident and ready to stand up and show out. All right. Again, I'm going through, taking a look and see if there's any questions out there. If they're not, we're going to keep this thing rolling. Let's see. Okay, so I see a question pop up. What is an example of a good question to ask at the end of the interview? That's a really good one. I like that one. One question that I've been able to keep in my back pocket. It's trying to reflect the information that I've looked on the website. So a lot of times people or companies will show on a particular job posting some of the things that they're looking for. And I'm trying to key in on those words, whether it be communication skills, whether it be certain qualifications. So one of the questions that I keep in my back pocket is wanting to flip that back on them and truly ask them, well, what are some of the qualifications that you're truly looking for, not only in a potential employee, but someone that you're truly wanting to invest in. And I think that allows the employer to really take a listen to the questions that you've already answered. And if you've given the answers that they want to hear, you'll hear some of your own responses in that response that they give back. So that's one thing that I've always tried to input is reflecting and getting a response as far as what are some of those qualifications that you're wanting to see. Another question would be, what would be the outlook 5-10 years down the line? And I truly feel that that's going to show your actual interests, not just in what you see as a job today, but truly wanting to grow in that company and see it move forward, and asking for an outlook 5-10 years down the line. What are some things that you want to see moving forward? And again, that shows that you've done some research and that you want to continue being part of them growing. Let's see, anything else? What's the best answer when you're asked, what is your weakness? That's a great question. And for me personally, I've gotten that a lot, and I've tried to change it because saying weakness, that doesn't even feel right to me. It's not something that we want to talk about. I try to flip it into areas of improvement. So it's always strengths and weaknesses, and I feel most people can talk about things that they're good in very well. It doesn't take a whole lot of thought to do that because you know what things you're strong in. But when it comes to what they say weaknesses, I like to flip it and say areas of improvement. These are some things that I know that I can do, but I want to work to be able to do them better, to be more effective in that way. And again, I say that trying to change it in that way because I feel everyone wants to see improvement. We all know that we're not the most perfect in the most perfect position or the most perfect people that we can be, but there's always room for growth. So I think that goes back to my response and going into what the situation was and being human and letting that me know these are some things that I know that I can do better in and work in a little bit more if I had a little bit more training or a little bit more coaching, etc. So that's one way. I try to change weaknesses and flip that to areas of improvement or ways that I can improve. Online interviewing, that's a very good one because I feel most of what I went over is definitely going to be applicable in this online environment, but I truly feel like we may need to work a little bit harder in understanding the nonverbal and body language cues because it's completely different standing or sitting in front of somebody and being able to really get a understanding and a vibe of the nonverbal cues, the eye contacts, the body language. But when it's in the online format, it's really just based on what we hear and what we can see. So I feel most of what I've gone over is going to be applicable to this online format that we're currently in right now. I think the biggest thing for most people is becoming comfortable with the online format. So I know that this is something that we'll talk about a little later and possibly in next week's session, but being able to understand what the online format is, being able to understand a basic understanding of Zoom, a basic understanding of Teams and some of the other formats that have been used, I think will go a lot in making individuals feel comfortable. And once you're comfortable, I do believe you're a lot more confident. So that's a good question as far as online interviewing, because I truly understand that the comfort level already being in the interviewing process is something that makes people nervous. It builds up a lot of anxiety. And when you go into a space feeling that, you're already not at your best. So changing it in the online environment, I feel for most of us, we're at home. So it's different. I'm not having to physically drive to the job to do the interview there. I can do it from the comfort of my own home. But then I also have to be very cognizant of the body language that I'm putting out. And because I'm comfortable, I want to make sure that I'm coming off not just comfortable, but confident. So that was a very good question. Key thing to remember to do if I'm asked to do a video interview. A key thing to remember, what I would say is backgrounds. Understanding when we're in our home, we're in our home is comfort. So for me, when I talk about, and this is a segue, but I talk to my students about studying in an uncomfortable, comfortable space. And it's hard for me to do it at home because I'm so keyed in on what's going on in the background. I may be watching ESPN, or I may be focusing on what I'm going to eat for lunch. So understanding that, yes, doing it in a video format allows us to be at home, but still understand that this is a professional setting, and we have to change the mind frame. Yeah, I'm at home, but this is something for the profession, because we all realize that this online format is not going to go on but for so long. It's not going to be a forever thing. We will be back face-to-face and in the job format at some point. So understanding how we're able to use the technology now will definitely help us moving forward, but we will be going back to a face-to-face at some point. Okay. Any other questions that I see? All right. Well, if I don't see any other questions, I definitely want to thank you all for attending. I truly feel that there was something, whether it be a tip, a strategy, a tool that you'll be able to utilize, like I said, for when you go into that next interview, not only to be confident, but to be there, stand up and stand out. I want to thank you for your time. And now I know I want to actually pass the speaking point to an individual who has been truly, truly integral in making this happen today for our Blaze Ahead event. I know that what we're doing today is something that she's truly passionate about and has a background in. So I'm thankful that she's been so hands-on and putting this together. All right. Introducing Mrs. Naila Bader, who will be the moderator for our panelist discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Again, my name is Naila Bader, and I will be your moderator today. I've worked in talent acquisition for the past 3 years, and after having a conversation with the men of We Will Rise a few months ago, we decided to create Blaze Ahead as a way to assist our community when they're seeking a job or career. So this panel will answer your questions and give you advice on how to navigate the hiring process and starting a career. Just a reminder that if you have any questions, please use the chat during this segment and we will get to them shortly. We have some amazing panelists that work in the industry or have years of related experience. So let's give a round of applause to our panelists, Brandon Shelby, Damian Donaldson, and Anthony Hill. Woo! We will begin introductions with Damian Donaldson, thereafter Brandon Shelby, and then Anthony Hill.
My name is Damian Donaldson. Again, I'm the Director of Professional Development for We Will Rise. However, I've had a long 10-year career in career development, starting from college. You know, when I went to grad school at USC, go Trojans, for my master's. That was my first kind of start off into career services. I had an internship there, and then that's when I kind of realized that's what I wanted to do: helping students, helping professionals try to transition into the professional world. And there's a lot of things that I picked up along the way that really informed me on what the hiring process is like, the recruiting process is like, and also all the different variations of all the different transitions that we're going through. So did some time there. Worked for this organization called Inroads that focused on helping Fortune 500 companies acquire talent from minority students, and also, executives on the alumni side from across the nation. As a national recruiter, I've primarily focused on the Pacific Southwest region, but by the time I left, I was pretty much the whole West Coast, Washington, all the way down to San Diego, Nevada, Arizona, and worked with 23, 24 different universities, top tier universities, state schools, hosting various events, then transitioned into career services on an institutional level. Again, helping students, alumni, worked in business schools, private schools, state schools, and then also in that same light worked in a data analyst role for the Career Center to really try to understand how this transition that we're going through is looking from a data perspective, and how do we make adjustments to make sure that we're helping our students and alumni and seasoned professionals know how to engage in the hiring process, because we have been engaging in a very disruptive time period where technology is upending old HR processes. And if you're not aware of what those disruptive technologies are, and know how it's changing the landscape, and know how to leverage it on your own, then you're severely at a disadvantage, even though you may be qualified. So, taking all that information and bringing it to this forum is a very exciting thing for me, especially, people of color, really trying to understand how do we, transition through, go through any hurdles that we may face along the way, with a proper perspective of making sure that we're, focusing on just bringing our best selves, and letting that shine through. So I'm going to stop there. I can talk for days. I'm going to stop there and hand it over to another panelist. Actually, let me just hand it over to one of my closest friends here. Well, both people are here, but I'm going to hand it off to another Inroads alum, Brandon Shelby.
Hello, everybody. Brandon Shelby. So happy to be here. I'm sitting as a panelist and an expert in the field of recruiting and acquisition. As Damien said, I am an alumnus of Inroads, both on the student side as well as being able to recruit. I graduated from Cal Poly with a degree in HR and a minor in entrepreneurship in 2005, and had a lengthy career working as an HR assistant manager for Macy's Federated, in store, working in stores at the time, just getting my feet wet and understanding what's important in the HR space. And fast forwarding to my tenure at Inroads, I was actually doing much of what Damien had mentioned, managing the account, but also working through the opportunities of getting new talent in from the different schools. Fast forwarding to where I am now, I'm currently working for Bank of America as an assistant vice president of corporate recruiter in class hiring. So recruiting for different positions on the customer service side as well as sales, and really focusing in on what's important to the bank, but trying to recruit diverse talent within the organization as a whole. And so a lot of what has been discussed on today in terms of how to market yourself and differentiate yourself from the competition, and really looking at ways to make yourself a better candidate, a more proficient candidate when you're talking to actual employers, potential employers, is going to be key. So looking forward to adding more context and value to the conversation.
Very good, Mr. Shelby. It's always good to get the introductions up front, because we get to see how many other connections we all have. So I'm actually an Inroads alum as well. So good to have that connection. My name is Anthony Hale. I am a engineering project manager with the Navy, supporting the technologies that are delivered to the warfighter. I've been doing that for about 19 years, and before that worked with a fairly small company, a pretty large company, actually, Procter & Gamble, doing a lot of product work. So the stuff you see in the store, the shampoo, even the Pampers, they're responsible for all those types of companies, those products. So I got a pretty broad understanding of the importance of product placement. What you see is important and where you see it. And also just over my career, I've seen a lot of different situations with employees, with different managers at different levels. And so I hope to be able to answer any questions that come up today during the panel discussion. It looks like we already have at least one really good question. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Naila so she can moderate us.
Thank you for those introductions and for taking the time being here today. My first question to the panel is, how did your earlier career choices lead you to where you are now? And would those choices be applicable today?
So do you have anybody in particular you want to start with, or since I'm talking, I should just go?
Whoever wants to start it off. I guess that's you.
So can you repeat the question one more time, just so I know how to hit the runway?
Yes. So how did your earlier career choices lead you to where you are now? And would those choices be applicable today?
So it's interesting in some of my career choices. I knew that, coming out of college, I wanted to do something with education, and I had to do some, research. That's always important to do, is, try to do research into, the field that you're trying to get into, the industry that you're trying to get into, and to really kind of find the highs and the lows of it, right? And so that's what kind of intrigued me into going into career services and higher ed, right? I knew that that was a very important thing. So by going into career services, I was like, okay, great. Let me kind of see how that plays out, so I can advantage myself the best I possibly can. But I think it was mentors, right? Definitely mentors. I had an idea, probably an over-romanticized idea, but when you start, going into a certain space, you start to feel it out, and then you have people that you can talk to that are definitely out on the ground level. That's where it has the most impact, right? So talking to people in the internship that I did was very important. But also, what also shaped my career choices was being a part of professional organizations, right? And I think that's a very undervalued, or people aren't necessarily thinking about looking into professional organizations. If you are thinking about a career transition, right? Go to a professional organization that's associated with it. Go to their events. Find out what they're talking about, right? Find out what are the hottest skills. Find out where these, regional conferences are, or national conferences if it's a well-developed organization, because then you'll find the greatest opportunities there, right? And also you'll find some great people to talk to. And you can find additional mentors. And a mentor doesn't have to be a formal program where you're there for 6 months, right? It could be micro mentoring moments, right? And I have plenty of those micro mentoring moments that really helped inform me as to what I should do, like the first step, the second step, 3, 4, 5, 6 type things. So I think that to wrap it up in a nice little bow, it's the internship and mentors and professional organizations.
Brandon or Anthony, did you guys have anything?
I would echo what Damien said, especially the professional organizations, especially early on, like at the nonprofit level. It's really fertile ground for you to practice your leadership skills in an environment where there's basically no penalty. And if you can figure out how to motivate volunteers, it will pay forward when you are in a leadership position trying to motivate people that are getting paid to do what they're doing. So definitely support that, and just kind of being open to different opportunities as they come about. I started off, even I knew I wanted to be in science. My first internship, second internship really, were in sales. So I learned a lot about sales. And those skills absolutely contribute to my abilities today. So definitely want to keep yourself open to opportunities, and you never know how they might benefit you in the future.
Nothing new to really piggyback off of, but just encouraging everyone to really take advantage of those opportunities. This post-COVID season, I would say the negative drawback is that you're not able to engage people in person as much with these professional organizations. But the positive aspect of it is that you have no excuse not to get engaged, because most of the stuff they're going to be offering is virtual or online. And so you can be on time because you don't have to show up anywhere. And specifically, you can really have those vital conversations or make those critical connections, because it's done virtually, and that's, I don't think that's going to go away. That is going to be the way of now and in the future moving forward.
And can I just add one more thing too, because I know we're on this professional organization thing, but there's a concept, and it's like a phrase that is very important. I think it wraps itself nicely around this whole theme of professional organizations. We've heard of that concept of, it's not who you know, but who knows you.
What's your number? Who you know?
Right. And sometimes it's not what you know, but who you know, right? So there's both sides to that. You have to go and find people, and people have to know about who you are, right? But if you're going into a field where you don't know anybody other than maybe a professor or maybe some people in your student organization, that's not getting yourself in the networks of these professional into the industry. But when you go into a professional organization, you start to meet these people, and when you volunteer and you start leadership, then people start to know who you are, right? So you're doing both things very, very quickly. And I'm gonna just drop I'm gonna drop a dime on people right now. If you volunteer in membership, because you get to know everybody, right? All the members, where they are, speakers that are coming in, and it's your goal to engage people, and there's a reason for you to engage. Even if you're sometimes shy, you have a role that puts you in a position to where you have to engage people, and you are forced to know people, and people are forced to know you. So that's the best role. Even if you can't be the director, volunteer for that, and you'll be surprised how fast your network explodes in a short period of time. So with that, I'm gonna drop the mic and walk away.
Thank you. Next question up for the panel. What impresses you the most when you're considering hiring someone?
I'll take that. First off, what impresses me the most is the amount of research you've done about the company, the position. Yes, your skill set is important, and what you've accomplished, meaning you've taken the time to rehearse what you're going to say, and you got a good idea of what kind of questions are going to be asked, like Mike talked about earlier, utilizing the SAIL or even the STAR technique. Coming prepared to the interview with what you want to say and how you want to say it, and specifically relating that to not only the position you're applying to, but the company that you're applying to. You know, a mentor of mine actually recently in career transition, I mentioned, Brandon, where do you see yourself working for? I said, well, I don't really know. At this point in my career, I've bounced around a bit, and I'm trying to find a home and a place where I can feel valued and I can have a place to grow. He said, well, stop right there. In terms of you going after companies, you want to target places where you align with their values and those companies also align with yours, personally and professionally. And then you know, you can mold your interview to what is most important out of that opportunity. But coming prepared for sure, and your knowledge base about the company and how it aligns with what you're looking for professionally and personally, that jumps off to me more so than anything that may be on your resume, because I can go through that. I can go through the nuts and bolts of what you provided in your resume and your application to get to this point. But what and particularly in this season where it went from maybe 100 people to every one position, you now have 600 to 1,000 people to every one position. So for me, I'm going to hear the same thing as a recruiter over and over again with respect to why you think you want a job, because you're just trying to get a job. But more importantly, I need to know that because there's such a focus from an employment perspective. I think the stat that Rashid put out there was about 80% of the people that get hired end up not being a good fit. So we're trying to minimize that as staffing and recruiting to ensure that we're retaining the right people, meaning from the outset, we're attracting the right folks that really want to be here, right? You don't want to go into a job and just figure, I'm going to try this out until something else comes up. No, in this season, I don't care what it is, whether it's pick, pass, and ship at Amazon, or if it's a sales position at B of A, the employers, it's an employer's market. They get to pick and choose who they want, right? So you got to differentiate yourself and really show, hey, this is why I want to be here, and this is why it's important that you take my interview seriously. Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to add? Anthony?
Yeah, hungry, humble, smart. That's a preview for next week, but absolutely, you want to make sure that you are exhibiting the traits of the ideal team player. So you should research that and be ready for next week.
So yeah, I've done my share of hiring and stuff, and so I think it's interesting because once you are seated in the place where you are seeing it and the hiring process unfold, what we're seeing as recruiters and hiring managers is an extended list of people that we're comparing, right? And so if you think that you're just going to come and just show up and be like, all right, I'll see what's there, then you're not competing, right? You have got to show up saying hungry, right? You have got to show up polished, professional, ready to show your best self and to, tell the best stories. Like I tell people, at the end of the day, whoever tells the best story wins, right? And that means you have to tell it professional. You have to bring your best possible self. You have to be prepared. But you also have to do your due diligence to find out if this is the company that you want to work for. Like Brandon was saying, when you're lining yourself up with the values of it, I can expand that just a little bit further and say it's about company culture, right? Because I've seen some companies that look great, but then depending on the department that you go in there, it may be a highly competitive environment and you may be a highly collaborative person, right? And if you're going in there and you're thinking it's going to be a certain way because that's what you imagined, right? And then all of a sudden you find out that yes, this isn't the right place for me because of the department culture, then it is not a fit, right? In sales departments, it is about competition, right? And sometimes it's about collaboration. But in in other departments, it's solely about collaboration, right? And it works its way up the chain. So I would definitely say a person who's coming in and who is aware of the type of culture that it is, and also knows how to share their story that shows that yes, they are competent and they are people that you can work with, right? Is very important because you have applied. You have done your resume. We have brought you in because we have some inkling that you are competent enough to do the job, but we're bringing you in also to figure out if we even like you, right? Can you even come in to this culture and do well, right? And that's the real kind of like assessment that takes place. And so if you have that in mind and you start to make decisions around how you want to, present yourself, then you are coming in a lot more educated and a lot more nimble to one, fit in, but then also to see if they're a good fit for you as well by asking smart questions, right? I usually ask questions like, what brought you here and what keeps you here, right? And people sometimes they step back and they have to reflect now, right? But the whole strategy behind that is to kind of see, what their thoughts are, and then also to try to align yourself up with that person, because now you have the abstract way of trying to aligning yourself up. But when you talk to somebody who is the person that you're actually maybe working for, you can start to set the stage to align yourself up with the person that you're working with. It's easier for that person to see you as a good fit because you guys are already talking about a common theme, right? And but if you hear something that's not in alignment with what you are, please take that in serious consideration. Don't just say, okay, well, I may not like this person giving me some red flags, but maybe I'll just see if I can make it work. No, I've seen that happen too many times where you come in with that too idealistic kind of situation, and you're trying to fit what they say a round ball in a square peg, right? If you feel like that you're doing that, then most likely you're setting yourself up for failure, right? And trust me, they're thinking the same way too. If you come across and it's not a good fit, then then they'll just possibly move on. Don't take it personal though, and I'll stop there.
Thank you. So we do have a question from our chat from Rowena, and it's, if the employer wants 6 qualifications and I only have 4 or 5, should I go ahead and apply? And Rashid Hill would actually like to start this one off, so he's going to jump into the panel.
Oh, great. Well, I appreciate that. Is my voice coming through? I know we've had some shaky. Okay, great. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and like I said, as a hiring manager or a selecting official or somebody on a hiring panel, I think one of the things that we have to consider, we may say, here are 6 categories, 6 areas that we are looking for as far as ranking and sorting and ranking the resumes. And so when we're looking at those resumes, yes, they may have all of those qualifications. You may have a preponderance of qualifications in 6 areas that you say these are important. But one thing that you always know, that whatever weight you put on those 6, depending on the position, if it's a leadership position, then your leadership category is going to have more weight than your regulation, or you may be looking at education piece. Let's say you have education as one of the ranking or categories for scoring. It may be good. You may have a master's degree, but if your experience is only 1 year and the person that has a bachelor's has 6 years experience in that same field, then you're going to figure out that if you have 4 that are at, if it's 1 through 5, if 4 of the person, one of the candidates meets 4 out of the 6, and they score at 5 on 4 out of the 6, and the other ones score 3 out of all 6, well, guess what? I'm looking at the person that has the 5s. And the other 2 will help build those particular attributes or skill sets. If it's not one, that's the critical one. If they're going into a leadership position, then of course the leadership category has to be the highest. But if they're going to be team player and they're not going into a leadership position, then we may want them to have leadership qualities because they'll lead or something like this, but they don't have to have that one at the highest. So you got policies, you got education, these different things. One of the things that I used to look for, because we were hiring, junior staff and we were hiring senior staff, we would look at certifications because a lot of times the education piece was all over the place. But I had people that literally were, if the government scale, GS7, that's been in the system for 19 years as a GS7. And so when we're looking at those positions and they're trying to move to a GS9 position, which is, a little higher, and it's a non-supervisory, then you don't have the leadership. But guess what? We know you've led projects. We know you've led different types of things. So as a hiring manager or somebody that's on the panel, you can have 4 quality or 5 quality scores and not meet all 6 and still have a great opportunity to get past the first phase of ranking and sorting the resume. So that's a great question, and I've been in that position many times. Thank you, Naima.
Did anyone else have any input on that question?
I would agree. There's an article I read a while ago, and there's just certain articles stick with you over time, but this one had to do with, it was a comparison of men and women with respect to that particular question. If you have a set of, let's say, 12 criteria and you don't meet all of them, should you apply for that opportunity? And the article was mentioning how men will generally apply for that opportunity, even though they know they don't meet every single one of the criteria. And women generally did not submit those applications if they didn't meet all of the criteria. And so my answer would be yes. You should absolutely, if you think you are a good fit for that particular opportunity and you might meet, 10 out of the 12 of the criteria, they will probably be open to continued discussions and have you in the running for making a decision on receiving that position. So I would encourage you to do that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, just adding to that, Anthony and Rashid, I think just you don't have to have all the skill sets, but in your interview, you should be able to accentuate or really emphasize your strengths. So if you have 4 out of the 6 or 5 out of the 6 skill sets that they're looking for in a given position, you should be able to really articulate what you are good at and the experiences that you do have, so that you can differentiate yourself from the competition. And I know personally, I've applied to positions that would be, I guess, viewed as out of my league at the time, but I know I had some really good experience in other areas that could add value to the position in the organization I was applying to. And in more cases than not, I actually got those roles because, again, as Damien talked about, being able to sell yourself and tell your story. But you have to know you better than anybody else. So if you don't know that, if you aren't rehearsing that now, if you aren't providing yourself with a script, and even I would add to that, in this space of virtual interviewing, whether it be via WebEx or over the phone, you can use the tools that are available to you. You can have a paper out with a sheet of things you want to highlight and talk about. And versus if you're in an interview in person, you can't have that. You're in a suit and tie, you got your portfolio, and you're talking to the person directly in front of you. You can't use notes and things of that nature. So you use what's at your disposal to really differentiate yourself from the competition.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said.
Next up, how have you tackled and overcome racial biases in your career?
Okay, let me see if I can try to take a stab at this. I mean, it's interesting. How do I try to approach this? Because racial biases, I don't think necessarily present themselves in a very kind of overt way. Typically, right? There are moments where it does come out very, overtly, but I think that just the whole terms of bias in itself, the whole concept of bias itself, it is rampant everywhere, right? It could be age discrimination, it could be sex discrimination, it could be orientation biases. I mean, and if you have a feeling that, it may be related to those issues, then it's like you kind of have to figure out, how do you navigate around it? And I think this is a great reason why mentors are important, right? Because, this is not something that is new, right? And there may be some other more experienced people that can kind of guide you through how to walk across that field of landmines, because, it could be something of, how you address it. Some people may not even recognize it, right? And they'll say, "Oh, it's probably this and that," or I don't think it's, it's related to that. Some things you may have to elevate to your HR, manager or something, So there's a way to kind of, handle it. Don't be ignorant to the fact that it doesn't exist, but I don't think that we should be able to, that you should jump the gun automatically and say, "Oh, this is exactly what it is." You really have to do your due diligence and really kind of understand the situation and try to look at it from multiple perspectives. And it comes to a point where it is, obvious, then there's usually a pathway to, acknowledge that grievance, right? And sometimes the organization will have mechanisms in place to help support you, and sometimes they will not, right? And if you are in a situation where, it doesn't look like, it's being resolved in a way that you can tolerate, right? Or that it's moving forward, then you may have to consider other alternatives, right? I'm not really going to get into too much of what that is, but you guys can imagine, right? But really just, try to do your best to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, find out the resources that are out there, look for the mentors that kind of help you guide through this, problem, and just make sure that you don't let it affect your performance, right? Because at the end of the day, that can affect your performance. What do they call that? They call that a stereotype threat, right? And that comes in many forms too. Or there's a thing called the imposter syndrome, where you feel like maybe I'm not qualified for this. That is an academic field, but it also happens itself in it finds itself in places of work. Okay, so just continue to be the star performer that you are, and find resources to help you deal with that in a polished and professional way that keeps you moving forward and doesn't stagnate your career.
Well, I literally just had a conversation with a mentor. I recently reached out to a gentleman at B of A. So backing up, I was a consultant for Bank of America since 2017, working in recruiting for another organization that was contracted by B of A. I recently got converted to full-time working for B of A as a assistant vice president of corporate recruiter. I reached out to a gentleman after, this is post, unfortunately, George Floyd and all the racial tension that is going on in our country. We recently had a series of calls at Bank of America where they're addressing this exact fact, as well as social issues that are impacting us as African Americans that are actually working for B of A. And as a result of that, I reached out to one of the SVPs within HR, just to connect and have further conversation. And this topic came up specifically of, how do you combat that? How do you combat that implicit bias as well as real in-your-face bias when it comes to race relations in corporate America? And he said, first of all, you have to let your work speak for itself. It has to be pristine. You got to work harder and be better than your peers. But second, especially in this season, you talked about really being bold, a little bit more emboldened to speak up for yourself. Obviously doing it in a professional manner, but speaking up for yourself in the sense that you're okay with bragging about your work and your and the efforts that you're putting forward in different projects or different areas and spaces that you're working in. I know for myself, Anthony, you mentioned being hungry and humble, and I get the third H. But a lot of times I'll be humble and not toot my own horn, but that's almost to my detriment, right? So be okay with having your brag book and having things that you have listed to show what you brought to the table and what you've already accomplished. And then when they go to measure apples to apples of you as a candidate versus somebody else, and you can get a good idea of whether this person has been elevated and pushed based upon who they knew or based upon whether they actually meet the qualifications in comparison to you. And you can address that in kind with the leadership that's making those decisions. And if you feel it really being a problem, then definitely do take it to your HR and address it accordingly. But I would say in this season, we have a true window and a precedented time where you can speak up and not have the same type, at least within certain companies, I should say, not have the same type of fear of retaliation. Because I'm no longer an angry black man or a black woman, angry black woman. I'm a person. I'm a black individual who works at this company, and I'm seeing something that's wrong, right? And I can speak out against that. Versus before, the atrocity that happened with George Floyd, it just really was in your face and in living color, where they couldn't deny or say it was just film. Like many people saw, unfortunately, he was murdered, live. But that woke a lot of people up. That shook a lot of people up, white, black, or indifferent. So to that point, you have an opportunity to speak up for yourself in ways that I know I didn't feel before this year. Previous organizations, other things have happened, and you gotta bite your time and keep moving. Bite your tongue, excuse me, and keep it moving. Versus now you can actually say something.
Nothing to add. I think it was hit very well.
Thank you. Next question, if we don't have any in the chat, it's going to be, what career mistake has given you the biggest lesson? Everyone's thinking hard.
Nobody wants to talk about mistakes.
I'm gonna let you go first, Anthony, on that one. So,
Career mistakes. Wow. Let's see. I think one career mistake is getting into a position and not truly understanding the culture that is expected for that position. So one example I can provide is working in an organization that has a high perception on how much time you spend there in the office versus how much work you're actually getting done. And you can be the highest performing employee, but if other people are staying late on certain days or have certain hours, that can be a perception challenge for you. So it's really, in that particular case, it was important for me to recognize the culture and adjust my hours such that the work that I was putting in, that was good quality work, could also be echoed by the metric they were actually measuring, which was, how dedicated are you? How much extra time are you willing to put in? And that kind of speaks to what Mike Love was talking about earlier with respect to interviewing and how it's a combination of what you say and the nonverbal communication that you're delivering. And so that would be a good example of where the nonverbal or the non-action of, not being there super late on certain days could be delivering a message that you're not intending. So that would be an example I would provide for this group.
So I can come in on something too, and I spoke to this earlier, I had applied for a position in an organization that I knew was a hostile work environment, right? But I was in a place where I was like, well, I'm done with this last gig, and I wanted something different, and it was the position that I wanted. So it was the step that I wanted to take, but it was a hostile work environment. And so I said to myself, well, I'm a charming guy, I was trying to be idealistic. And I said, okay, well, I can make this work. And then when I got there, it was a hostile work environment. So, from, I'm going to be honest, from leadership all the way down, and there are certain mechanisms in that organization that weren't either in place or weren't enacted, despite a history of that department going through some serious issues, right? I mean, it was very high turnover, and even people that I knew, and even people that I looked back and I was like, this person is a stellar person, right? Award-winning, has gone up the ranks in different organizations. Why is it when this is here that this person is running out of the door, right? And why is it that these other people have been let go? And I said, well, I'm just gonna keep my head low and move forward. But if you know about the organization, because you're doing the research, and you see these red flags as you're even coming into it, pay attention to that, right? Pay attention to that. So because if it's telling you about that earlier on, even though you have the idea of, this is where you want to go, this is the opportunity, maybe it might not be the right time or space to make that leap, right? So pay attention to that, because that definitely kind of, threw a curveball and how I had to navigate in and out of that situation. So that would be the best thing I can say.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap it up and pick back off of that. I left Inroads. I was there for about 3.5 years at Inroads for a for-profit organization called Robert Half Staffing. And I left for money, right, for the promise of money and fortune and everything else. I found out very quickly the expectations, to Anthony's point, of what they were looking to do in order to get that fortune and fame was a lot more than I had signed up for. Working 12, 13-hour days. I was engaged at the time, getting ready to be married. I'm like, what's the quality of life here? It's all about sales and trying to push towards doing different things that I was comfortable with, but then in some instances I wasn't, and it ended up not being a long-term fit for me. So yes, money is important. I'm not saying that is not an important thing for you to look at, but don't automatically go to different organizations or companies just for the sake of the dollar sign, right? Going back to the values and the vision, the mission of the organization and the culture. Make sure it's a good fit. Make sure it's a really good fit for you. It's a good fit for them, so you guys can move forward amicably. Because otherwise, it'll be real hostile real quick. You'll be like, I got to get out of here. So.
Thank you. Do you guys have any last parting words or bits of advice you'd like to share before we end the panel?
Just stay positive, stay focused. continue to develop yourself, and just be aware. Don't take don't rest on your laurels, right? Stay hungry, right? And continue to be focused, and as long as you stay true to that inner core, then you'll be amazed as to where you can go and know how to make sure how to navigate yourself through and surround yourself with the right people. There's this one quote, and it's said in Spanish. I think from what I understand, it is. I think it's from Mexican culture. I'm not sure, but I know it's like a Latinx kind of concept. But they say, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are, right? And I think that suggests about your network, right? Tell me who your network is. Tell me who you hang around, and I'll tell you who you are. If you want to continue to strive up, surround yourself with those types of successful people.
I would just encourage everyone to continue to invest in yourself. Recognize where you are and recognize where you're trying to move, get ahead to. And these opportunities are really beneficial to gather information from other people who've been in your shoes or been ahead of you. So just keep investing in yourself, and thank you as well for attending today.
Yeah, continue to be persistent, stay encouraged. We'll get through this and get on the other side of it. The basis of persistence is the power of will. So be persistent in networking, be persistent in educating yourself, and trying to drive towards a career that's meant for you. So thank you all for being here again, and thanks for having me.
Thank you again to all the panelists for participating today and giving some great information to our audience. Now that our panel has concluded, I'm going to hand it off to Gary to end our event.
Thank you. I personally want to thank everybody for tuning in. That was pretty awesome, amazing, and really informative. I want to thank Mike and Rashid for giving us 2 great workshops on job seeking, and job search and interviewing. We're not done though. So everybody, I do want to let you know this is just part 1. Part 2 is next Saturday, August 22nd from 12 to 2 Pacific Standard Time, depending on where you're at. So once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And until then, blaze ahead.
And last thing too, there will be a survey sent out. So make sure that you close out, and when we send the survey, that you fill that survey out. So that's the last thing.
Thank you for adding that in. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So if anybody else has anything to add in, please do. If not, we will see you next Saturday.